Welcome to I Love My HBCU ? The podcast where we express our undeniable love for HBCUs, but where we are also not afraid to address a few tough questions. So, sit back, learn a little, love a lot, and rep your HBCU. All right. It's another episode and another reason to love your HBCU. Chinedu Nwokeafor, how are you?
I am blessed and highly favored.
It feels like we should have an in-studio with you and I talking all the time, as many times as I've seen you this summer, doesn't it?
I'll have my lawyers draw you up a contract.
Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Whew, Lord have mercy. So, Chinedu, I met you as a budding student activist at your
Mhm.
illustrious alma mater, Morgan State University. And I remember those times. Um, as I don't want to call you a former activist. I believe you're still in the activism world today. So, as a then student activist and up until now, on a scale of 1 through 10, rate the level of activism that you see coming out of HBCUs in this current era. Let's go with 2025.
I would rate it a very, very strong 0. And to be fair, to be fair, even when I was at the height of my activism, I wouldn't even give it a 10. That's where the decline
Okay.
actually started, in my opinion, and it
Oh,
just
wow.
transgressed from there.
Okay. I am I'm very, very careful not to always not to actually express a lot of my opinion on the
Mhm.
podcast. It seeps through. As hard as I try, it seeps through. I also respect everybody's perspective. 0, though. That seems a little harsh.
I mean, you asked me, I haven't heard anything. And I want to be clear that today social media has such a stronger presence even than it had when I was in, college.
Okay.
And I'm on all the different waves, the Twitter, X, Blue Sky, all of the spaces. I don't hear anything. I'm actually looking. I'm interested to hear what's happening, to see if legacies are continuing. I don't hear anything. But to be clear, I will unequivocally say this: it is my fault, and it is the fault of the people of my generation and the one before.
So since you're faulting yourself,
Yes.
what do you think your generation, my generation, and the generation before you, what do you think we could do differently since the fault lies with us with regards to the current generation getting the current generation of college students at HBCUs particularly getting a grade of 0? Because I'm still going to hold strong that I think that's a bit harsh, but go ahead.
Well, I would say, like, for first, I would say for myself, um, I even said this when I was in school, when I was literally in the very pubescent stages of activism. I said we have to think about who's coming next. The first time I ever spoke, I think it was April 3rd, 2012, at Morgan State University. I think it was a Trayvon Martin rally. It's the first time I ever spoke in that manner. And that is what I said. First time I said we have to think about those coming next, because even I knew that my time was very limited and I was barely a sophomore at that time. And the reason why I kept thinking about the next one is because if you're getting excited about me, like when you think about business, right? Think about, let's use an example. Think about Air Jordan. They put
Okay.
out an Air Jordan shoe today, and they're already thinking about the next 3 or 4 iterations. Because in order
Mm-hmm.
to get a complete following, it can't just be that one product. It has to be a continuum of products. And I believe that a lot of activists, now, not quite me. I would not put myself in this group, but it has been my
Okay.
experience that a lot of activists are it's the ego. They were chasing the ego, like, will this help me get into a Greek letter organization? Can I use it as a resume builder to get a job, maybe be on television? And I just wanted the issues to be fixed. That's all I cared about. I didn't care what anything happened after that. And I think for that reason, everybody platformed themselves rather than bringing the next generation onto the platform and showing them how to do it. Which is why subsequently I make the statement that I make. And if it's harsh, data and research is something that I love to do. Let's just do a data search. Let's do HBCU activism 2010, HBCU activism 2011, do it all the way to 2025, from 10 to 25, and see how the numbers will dwindle. Because they are. They are.
I think this is based on everything I've just heard you say. I actually think this is a perfect moment to ask you then,
Mhm.
what does activism mean to you? Because you mentioned, or maybe I'm assuming that you mentioned the era of the sit-ins and SNCC and so on and so forth. And a lot of what I hear you Herkin, if you will, is very physical in your face and so on and so forth. But you also mentioned the fact that this era, there's a lot of, you didn't say a lot of, but there is an impact of social media today more so than your time, if you will. And I bet there are going to be some people listening to this that are going to say, but hold on. Um, the activism of 2025 looks a lot different than the activism of 2020 and years before then. So how would you define activism today?
I would
Or if not today, how would you define activism, period?
well, the way I've always seen activism is I look at the word, active. It is moving, it's going, it's also activation, getting people to move and go. It's seeing something that is so powerful that it moves you. Uh, Even whether you understand or not, I don't believe activism is just in its sense the protest or a boycott. It is this person or this issue is moving me to do something. It is a
Okay.
movement, right? You know how like they say in church, like singing is like praying twice. Like activism is a complete movement. It's in the mind, it's in the body, it's in the spirit. But most importantly, activism, in my opinion, is an attraction. It has to be able to attract people to replicate what is taking place. And I just I don't see that. And ooh, this is good. I have a really interesting reason why I feel like that exists, even
Okay.
before my time.
Okay.
A lot of the problem with activism, honestly, it's a young
Mm-hmm.
man's sport, a young woman's sport. And the issue is that most of the activists are now settled in 9 to 5 jobs, settled into
Hmm.
corporate life. So because they have so much to lose, they, at least in my experience, they don't hold the fervor or the spirit that they once did because they might lose that job or that 401k or that position. And I think a great example of that is by many of the HBCU presidents. Um, they do not hold the spirit, the full spirit. Everybody holds the words, right? Everybody can quote what Martin Luther King said, but who is replicating what he did? And I think when you look at it from that point of view, when the top of the family, I'm using it at the HBCU, when the top of the family is the president, that is the parent, mother, father, depending on who is running the school. When they are not pushing for you to make these changes, you too might just sit there and because it starts from the top, but then also back to my people, it's also the young alumni and the young students. They have to there is listen, there is no shortage of injustice. I've always said that. There's no shortage. If anything, we are in the age of injustice plus. So there is so much to do, but I think, and I kind of wanted to say this for later, but I'll say it now. I think there is so many shortcuts that makes people feel like their activism. One big one is social media. Because I retweeted, I did what that person on the front line is doing at a protest. Not exactly, and every part does play its role. Um, but you know, you have to play an active role. I did this, I did 10 tweets, I'm done. We're not done until we get the cause. So these are the things that I'm seeing that have been stifling, in my opinion, to activism, at least as it pertains to today, and more importantly on HBCU's campuses.
I'm chomping at the bits. And listen, if all you do is listen to us and not watch us, you must find YouTube somewhere.
Somewhere.
And you must log in to see, because I speak a lot with my facial expressions, even without trying. And I contorted so many times while you were speaking. But I also know it is extremely respectful not to cut in. I wanted to cut in at least 10 times. And hence this trusty pencil of mine and this notepad of mine. So if for those watching, if you saw my head down quite a bit, it's because I'm writing down a lot of the things that he's saying. Because I need to come back to the fact that to some of the things you said, there is no shortage of injustice. I love the 10 tweets and done phrase that you just used. But there's some questions in this rapid fire that are going to speak to that. So I want to get quickly, because I want to get so many of these rapid fire questions in. My producer is going to have to snatch the mic and just turn it off because I've got like so many and I want to get all of them in. So let's get to it. Let's get to it.
Let's
Okay.
do it.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Okay. Okay. Are you ready, Chinedu?
I'm ready.
67-ish seconds on the clock because it's going to be more than 60 seconds, 67 seconds. Okay. March with your people or argue in the comments.
March for my people.
Call your college president out or call them in?
Out, then in.
Out, then in. We're going to come back to that. Fight the system from inside or burn the system down?
Burn the system down.
He said burn the system down. Instagram activist or invisible organizer?
Both.
That's a good one.
It's a
Both.
really good
Both.
one. Both.
Lose followers or lose your voice?
Buy followers.
Buy followers. Cancel culture or accountability culture?
Definitely accountability.
Accountability culture. Speak out now or wait until you're in the room?
Time waits for no man. Speak out now.
Speak out now. Speak out now. Ooh, speak against racism in your organization or keep the internship. Now hold on before you answer that. Hold on before you answer that because you're HBCU made. I need you to try to put yourself back in that HBCU now space. Speak against racism in your org or keep the internship.
Speak against racism.
They always do this, but we got a lot of them in. I'm still asking a few more. Support Palestine or stay silent to keep your scholarship?
Support Palestine.
Support Palestine. I'm asking two more. Sorry, producer. I'm asking two more. Loud protest or quiet policy work?
Quiet policy work.
Boy, ooh.
Loud
Are we
protest.
changing?
Loud
protest. Loud protest. Boycott or buy black? He's smiling. It's the last one.
That's a good one. Oh, buy black.
Buy black. Buy black.
Reluctantly.
Okay. Listen, let me give you the choice here. There were a lot of good ones there. There were a lot of good ones. Which one do you want to expound on before I ask you a couple that I want you to expound on?
Palestine.
Go ahead.
I'll do that one first.
Go
So
ahead.
I would say I immediately remembered I grew up Catholic. My parents are Catholic. My parents are from Nigeria. I grew up Catholic, and during the Lenten period, and for those who don't know, the Lenten period is 40 days between Ash Wednesday until Easter. If you don't know what Ash
Yes.
Wednesday is, just count down 40 backwards from Easter, and you'll be good. But during that period when I was a youth, we
Can I
had
help
some.
you? Ash
Sure.
Wednesday is when, because everybody sees the images, when you see the black ash on people's foreheads as a signal, if you will, that for the Catholics and for some Christians, I don't think it's only Catholics anymore that practice that do this practice, and it's a reminder: from dust you were born, from dust you shall return. And so when you see that black ash, that's Ash Wednesday. That's the signal of Ash Wednesday for most people. Sorry, go ahead, Chinedu.
It's all good. It's all good. So on during that Lenten period, when I was a youth, okay, there was something that we did called living stations, and it
Okay,
goes through the stations of the cross, like
okay,
the whole
okay.
process of Jesus, from the time he got arrested till the time he rose from the tomb. And the living stations were the youth group, the young people. We would basically reenact the whole process. But there
Yes.
was one interesting part of it that we allow the audience to engage in, and they would have post-it notes in their pews, and we would have a cross in the front of the altar, a big cross that's empty, no Jesus on it, and the activity was called "My Sins Nailed Him to the Cross," and the idea was you would write your thing and you would put it on that cross.
Okay.
So when I think of the Palestine, I think of us always thinking sometimes of this is not our issue here. This is not our problem here. But that could be any of us. That was many of us. Have we forgotten? I will never forget. And I think, especially as a Black American, because of what I know that we fought for everybody's rights, civil. It wasn't just Black rights, it was
Mm-hmm.
all rights. I think it's a disservice to the Martins, it's a disservice to the Malcolms and the Medgars and the rest of them to not lend a voice to an injustice to a people who might not be American, but who are suffering something that we know of, that we are akin to. And as I always say, my favorite quote or my favorite reading from the Bible is Psalms. Whatsoever you do to the least of my people, that you do unto me. Just because you're not directly doing it, I think it's worse to see an injustice and say nothing than it is to actually perpetuate it. So for me, I would say something, and I would lose my internship, but retain my dignity.
So thank you. I asked you to expound on one, and you did.
And I did.
I'm gonna throw a few things at you here,
Let's
right?
do it. Let's do it.
Uh, there are risks to everything that we do. Don't care who you are. There are risks to everything that we do.
Mhm.
As I listen to you talk, I'm reminded of the student protesters across the nation, from Columbia University to Harvard, and several others. There are many that I'm not thinking of right now because I'm in my bird's eye. I'm seeing the ones that we saw a lot of coverage on. So that's why those are the ones that I threw out there. So to those who were heavily involved in protests and whose names I did not mention, my apologies. I just quickly did a scan of what I saw. Do you think being an outspoken student leader at an HBCU, so let's say the SJ president of any one of our HBCUs decided, you know what, I'm going to fight, and I ask you to look at this to the best of your ability from the shoes of that HBCU student, right, or that HBCU leader, and not from hindsight. Um, what are the risks and responsibilities of being that person who is going to be so outspoken in these types of hotbed situations that you've just mentioned?
Um, People are not going to like this response. There's no
Of
risk.
course not.
There's
There's
no
no
risk.
risk.
And I'll tell you,
Okay.
and let me expound because I'm speaking Chineduese, so I have to explain it to you. There is no real risk juxtaposed to what activism was. Nobody is sending bombs to nobody's houses. Nobody is pulling up to your garage and shooting you, Medgar Evers. That's not happening. So when I say there's no risk, the least or the most that they'll do is kick you out of the school, but no one's killing you. That's number one. The other reason why I'm saying there's no risk, remember what you signed up for. Nobody forced you to be this. And I never like saying student leader. I like saying servant leader to remind people that you're there to serve. And to be frank, I am a little bit more charismatic, and I believe that everybody doesn't carry this same uh, uh, energy that I carry, but it is the truth. And I know that because I converse with fellow student leaders from back in the day, and I asked them one question. That thing that you could have done, was it worth you not doing it? What did it change in your life? Are you any further behind the goalpost than you would have been if you would have stood up? I said, because I know I'm not. Didn't change anything for me. I think it made it better. And I say these things because they're important, because college is a microcosm of the real world. And the same way we get upset at our elected officials, like, you need to do more, you're a coward. It starts somewhere. And if you can be compromised in somewhere that is the risk is very minimal, especially if you're an American citizen. I mean, have you all read the student code, the student handbooks? It's very good to memorize. That's the reason why I never got kicked out of school, because I knew that thing. But the point I'm making is there is so much protection that doesn't exist in the real world, that this is actually the best time. This is the best time to cultivate you and
Mm.
yours. So to me, yes, you may just be 18, 19, 20, 21, but I think it's worth the risk. And why do I say that? Because the only reason you're in this school is because someone was willing to risk it all. It's the only reason. I love to remind HBCU students, that's the only reason that this even exists. Somebody risked it all. So who are you to not?
So, I'm going to take the word student off the table
Sure.
and ask you, the HBCU maids, the Chinedus of the world, who are still activists, do you, as an HBCU maid, and I keep saying as an HBCU maid as opposed to any other set of institutions, because, um, dare I say, HBCUs have been at the forefront of so many fights, and proudly so. Let's not forget from whence the great Martin Luther King Jr. was educated at Morehouse College, and the list, goes on. Um, do you have a responsibility, a duty, if you will, Chinedu? And when I say you can make it singular, you can make it plural, to stand on issues like Palestine, DEI, reproductive rights, and so on and so forth. And I want you to bear in mind what you just said with regards to there being no risks and responsibilities, there being no risks, you said, with regards to it being a student because of the safety net provided at colleges. So now you've graduated, you are working your like a good number of my colleagues call it, regardless of where they are, they're good black jobs, right? Knowing fully well, most of them are corporate positions and so on and so forth. What responsibility do you have?
I have a big responsibility, and I'm glad you brought this up, because what a better time than the present. When I first walked into the National Institute of Health in 2022 with my job, my first government job, I was so excited. I was serving as a senior program manager of diversity, equity, inclusion in the All of Us research program. Very amazing research program. Shout out to President Barack Obama. It was during his time where this thing was created. Um, I remember when I was doing my, introductions and welcomes, I had to let them know a couple of things. I said, you all hired me, and on payroll, I am here as Chinedu, but I got to tell you who's coming with me and who I'm representing. And I said, I am representing my whole tribe in Nigeria, because that's my culture, it's my parents. I am representing Baltimore, Maryland, because that is the city that cultivated me. And I'm also representing the illustrious Morgan State University, the HBCU that created this wonderful human being that you all decided to hire. And with that, I said, I bring their issues too, because their issues matter. Because if I matter, I am intertwined with those things. And I never strayed away from that. But here's what I learned as an adult that I didn't quite have as a young person.
Okay.
I definitely needed those dollars to continue to come. Let's be real. I wanted to keep living the life that I was enjoying, excuse me, the life that I earned by the grace of God. Um, but I did something that I noticed that I didn't do. I didn't much listen. Because youthful exuberance when you are a student is,
Hmm.
we want this, we want this. But we're now adults here, okay? And I'm dealing with different people who were raised differently. And what I learned by listening is why my answer was burn the thing down, is because what you realize is that the person that you're probably upset with or that you're fighting to get something from doesn't even know that they're propagating racism or whatever. They don't even know. They don't even know. The same way we need to be learned, they too need to be learned. Whoever the they is, and I say the reason why I say that is because
Mm-hmm.
there is a both sides here. And what I learned in my position, and having that position, I do not have that position anymore. Thank you so much to our wonderful 47th president. During his arrival, he wanted to rid DE&I, and my name was actually added to, I believe, like some blacklist website of people to be leery of, and they said all these crazy things about me that weren't true. But the truth of the matter is, they cut the funding. DEI couldn't be there, and more importantly, now I will say this: my
Okay.
degree is in project management, and I could have easily pivoted, but I also told my bosses who had their decisions made, when they were sad. I said, listen, this program and what you all are doing is more important than my position. And if this program, which affects a lot of Black people, I'm going to talk about it. It's a program that represents underrepresented people in biomedical research, and we all know that Black people are barely researched. So this was a huge deal for my people. And back to the ego, just because I needed a job didn't mean anything to what that program has to stand for. But what I will say as I close on this topic is, even in this space, I talked about my activism in college. And what I realized is sometimes you're here fighting to push the door open. Sometimes that person wants to open the door and learn. And that was my experience. And I brought all of these concerns. Of course, as you get older, you have to find a way to fine tune your words and use English in a very, I would say, in a symphony, if you will. But thank goodness my first degree is in speech communications because I did that easily. But what I'm saying in total is, even though that risk was there, in theory it wasn't, because at the end of the day, it's what we were representing. If you continue to think about a risk, then that is actually your price of where you can be purchased.
Hmm.
My opinion.
You said a lot. You said a lot. It leads me to want to ask you a question about your now, but
Oh,
I'm not going to. I'm not going to. I'm not going to.
who knows? I may sneak the answer into one of the other questions.
You may. Hmm. I'm going to.
Do
Do
it.
I have your
What?
permission? Okay.
Please, let's go there.
There are a lot of things. You're a very outspoken person and a very, very outspoken activist. You speak from your soul, is what I've experienced you as. Does not mean you're always right, does not mean you're wrong, but it means that you're convicted by what you say. But I also have noticed that you remember you talked about those dollars that allow you to afford the life that you're in. You also mentioned having lost the position that you had earned thanks to the arrival of 47. Has it silenced you? And I think that's the kindest way for me to ask something I already know.
Hmm.
Has it, do you think it has silenced you a little bit? From this person that we get to hear right now, who it appears to me has chosen not to be as outspoken with these things in all your platforms and in your full self as many of us have experienced persons like you to do. So has it silenced you?
Yes and no. And I
Okay.
will actually say no. And I'm gonna tell you why. Even though it
Okay.
feels like yes most days, I try to look at this moment also as hibernation, preparation. And you kind of have to have a future mind to see it that way. And the only great example I could think of, and it's my favorite person, I talk about him all the time, and I want people to stay with me on this example, is David Chappelle. When his situation happened with Comedy Central in 2004, 5, 6, you could say that he was silenced and he felt little. But then when you look at it now,
Hmm.
oh no, it was a confluence. He was he was he was a changing. It was a metamorphosis, if you will. He was changing and growing. And I think there's a book I've been reading that talks about thinking. I try to carry that same mindset because I know if I don't, I will be depressed and say that I failed because that's how it feels. But I also know that feelings aren't facts. And I do believe that, a brighter day is coming, the light at the end of the tunnel, any euphemism you want to use.
Sure,
Um,
sure.
but it's also rough now. And thank goodness to the people I have around me. I have my rough moments because I am human. I will mess up. And it does it I get I'm getting hot. I get frustrated. I get frustrated because I was I was somewhere that I really wanted to be. And I think I was making a difference. But what I also know is that may have not been the most ideal place for me to make the difference that I need to make following my Lord and God Savior. Who knows? Because if that was the place I should be, I will be there. But maybe my time there was up. So that's how I look at it. Like it's a yes and no thing. Like it's a yes for now, but it's a no for tomorrow because I know tomorrow it will be totally different because we're looking behind tomorrow and say, "Ha, look at that." But today we're looking at it like, "Darn, look at this." So that's how I see it.
Again, those who are only listening, you're missing out on my facial expressions. I'm just gonna keep saying that because you are missing out on my facial expressions. I was smiling and grimacing while you were talking for several reasons. I have several notes on my device, right? And one of the notes I have as I talk with Generation Next Thought Leaders is a series of questions, and I want to read those questions. You do not have to answer these questions. We can talk about it, but I want to read those questions that came out of our discussion about a month ago. And one of the questions, again, they were talking. And we were talking about, they came up with these topics, by the way, just to remind the audience that our summer episodes are thanks to a lot of conversations that we have with our Generation Next Thought Leaders, our Generation Next advocates at I Love My HBCU question mark, and we just delve into these topics with them. And as they were talking, I wrote down three questions, and those three questions could not be more relevant to what you just said. The first one is, are we experiencing protest and activism fatigue? Or are we evolving what activism looks like? That question to me is so relevant as one takes into consideration what you said when you gave activism in 2025 a zero. Because if we recall your statements from the beginning, that zero was born out of a comparison of what was to what is now. So I wonder if it is evolving or is it fatigue. The other question that I wrote down when we were talking is, what does resistance look like in the age of algorithms, anxiety, and overstimulation? Another extremely apt question that came out of that conversation when I listened to your words of you need to be careful not to get depressed by some of the moments of hibernation that you're going through, because who knows if it is a total confluence of what is to come. And then the last one, this one, I must give credit to Charles Blow. When I came across his Instagram, not came across, I do follow him on Instagram, but I came across this particular post that he made. I can't remember when it was, so don't quote me, but you see him doing, they call it the expert retort, is what I've heard some of my Gen Zers call it, when you have a video or a message and then your head pops in and you're commenting on it. And don't quote me on the caption, but it went along the lines of, I love it how there is ruckus going on all over the world and my black women, and then he points to a video of a bunch of black women happily dancing, doing a line dance, and I believe it's what's that popular one that everybody has been
Boots on the
doing?
ground.
Boots on the ground. Yes, listen, I only know one part of it. Let me
The
not make a
fan.
fool of myself right here.
The
That's the
fan.
only
The
part I
fan.
know. I don't know
I know.
any other, just that part. Anyway, can rest. That was the other question that came out, and that imagery of the Charles Blow retort to the video honestly lives rent free in my head. Can rest be a form of resistance? And how does one then not apply that to what you just said when I asked you the question of, hey, Chinedu, are you just staying silent? Or, and to your point or to your answer, you might just be hibernating. Now let me end my soliloquy, as I call it. I ask you to give grace then to our amazing Gen Zers. I ask you to give grace then to our HBCU students who have lived the era of post George Floyd, if you will, and protested from high school up until now and have not seen as much change as one would like. In fact, they have seen themselves vilified in many cases, and then in other cases, we can talk about the DEI rollbacks, for example, from earlier on this year. They've seen a lot of the things that they thought, hey, there's progress being made. They've seen a lot of those things being rolled back. Again, I'm not asking you to change your score from the beginning. That is not what I'm asking you to do. I'm just listening to an evolved conversation. And as I listen to that evolved conversation, I ask for grace. Because who's to tell 5, 10 years from now, those same students working their good black jobs at NIH and everywhere else may not necessarily have the same types of experiences that you have or similar, and then come to the same conclusions of moving a little bit differently to get a little further ahead. I'd like to hear your opinion on anything that I've said.
I want to be clear. I have a lot of grace. And
Okay,
remember, my zero was based on what I have seen. I
okay,
haven't seen it. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It's just I
okay,
haven't seen it.
okay,
Um, I do have grace, and you know why? I'm looking at this differently. Because I remember the conversation when I think it's 2014, Migos Walk It Like I Talk It. Migos became a big thing, and then there was this conversation about them not being rap, right? And people was like, "Well, back in my day, Curtis Blow basketball is my favorite sport." And I'm like, "Well, there's an evolution. There gets to be that, and there also gets to be this."
there we
And I
go.
understand that. So I want to be clear. Like I understand that the new generation is different, and I understand that they need rest, and I understand that, to be honest, I understand that they actually take their mental. Every generation moving forward within the last 5 years, every 5 year generation, goes a step further in mental health than the last. And I appreciate that. But let's talk about rest, since you brought up that term.
Yes.
When your body is resting, your brain is aware and regulating the body so that certain things can still function, so that you can be sleep, but your body in theory is still awake. But there has to be a connection and understanding. I have no issue with those who rest. They just need to be in concert with those who are awake so that both can switch at some point. That is my only thing. I do think rest as it's different. It's all different. What we're doing, it's different. To me, I don't, if it works, it works. And whatever gives you strength, you need it. But I will tell you why another part of me believes that we don't have time to rest.
Okay.
Ooh, I'm about to say something really crazy, and I do
Go
not
for it.
care.
Okay.
No HBCU in existence has an endowment that's worth a damn. Full stop. What do I mean by that? I mean, compared to the school, even local state schools have bigger endowments. So when I say we don't have time to rest, think about a Harvard. Harvard has the biggest endowment in the United States, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe
And
that's
when
accurate.
I think they're the biggest, if not, they got billions, more
They
than
do have
10.
billions. Mm-hmm.
When they were
I think
attacked,
it's 40.
I believe so. When they were attacked, they went immediately to work. And they have the money to stay any of the nonsense. That's what I'm saying. We don't even have that very important resource that moves the needle when it comes down to the ones and zeros. And trust me, I am a true activist, but I'm telling you, it comes down to the money at the end of the day. It does, guys. It does. So, what I'm saying is, when you rest, you can wake up and your HBCU is gone.
Mm.
When you rest, you can wake up and your rights are gone. Remember, rights were taken from people who are awake. Talk less of sleeping. So I am not against the resting, but we need to rest relay. The person who's resting needs to know who is sprinting for them because that sprinter is going to also need to rest. And then you're
Mm-hmm.
going to need to get
Mm-hmm.
up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's my
So
bigger
we need to
stance
take it
there.
in turns, is what I'm hearing you say. I'm
But we
hearing you say
also
we
need
need
to be in community.
in commu so can we talk about that word as you were
Yes.
talking, literally as you were talking. I wish
Yes.
I could pan and let people see my notes. I literally wrote, do Black people understand the power of sorry, do Black people understand their collective power? Because that's how I define community. It's our
Yeah.
collective power to move something, to be something, and so on and so forth. Do you think Black people, I know my answer. My answer is irrelevant. Do
Mhm.
you think Black people understand their collective power?
Yes, but I don't believe we know how to yield it.
Got it. Got
Well, I
it.
think it's two wheels are moving outside of the water. That's what I think. And I talk a lot about defense, my defense strategy, where it's a lot of defense and not offense. I'll give you an example. There was one time where we were doing some one of my many protests at the illustrious Morgan State University. And I knew I was going to have administration on their heels. So the people that they thought that they had as students on their side, I had them too. So I remember we were all in concert and we were all working, and I'm like, okay, let's frustrate them a little bit because a part of this is this is a stain when you're protesting. It's a stain that you want to bring to light, and you have to get a little rough to bring that out. So it was a demonstration, very peaceful, because we also understood that the people that we were fighting against, in the grand scheme thing, with the people who have the money, they think that we're all the same. Just keeping it real.
Mm,
But
mm,
in
mm.
that moment, we needed to force them to be the advocates that they're supposed to be for us. So we were very, very good. We realized that a lot of administration was on social media. So my direct team, I said, we're only going to communicate with certain people. Everybody won't know everything. Just in case somebody leaked, you wouldn't know the full thing. And when I was talking to my right hand man, Stephen, I said, man, this is really, really powerful. And when we had our meeting after this day, the protest was successful. When we had our meeting after this day, we talked about now that we did that, we need to do that exact same chain, that exact same connectivity in the most offensive way possible. That same thing that we use as a defense strategy, we need to use it offensive. And that's where I go to yielding. Because in my belief, the reason why I think protests or demonstrations don't work is because after the protest, that thing that brought us together, it's not there anymore. So people
Mm,
stop
mm,
coming.
mm, mm,
So people
mm-hmm.
stop coming. What if the cookout never ended? What if the cookout was eternal? What if the cookout was our defensive and our offensive strategy, where it was just our way of life? And the reason why that's important is because you need people to be able to show up and believe, right? Because what happens if we were fighting for, let's say, $15 an hour uh, for the food workers, right? And what if they gave it to us? Do I now never see that brother I just met again? Do I now never see that sister? So I say that because community has to be the everyday thing. And we already had it from a structural point of view because we all lived on campus. So physically, the community was there, but we didn't play into it enough. And we talked about, hey, we're not going to always have protest. We need to have also activities that calls for people to come in that isn't always about this, but still uses the idea of togetherness. Let's do conversations. Let's see if we can get SGA to sponsor certain things. Let's feed people. College students, y'all know how important food is. These are all tactics to hopefully teach that this community is not just because they killed George Floyd. This community is because you are a black man in America, because this is your sister and this is your brother. Even if we have nothing to quote unquote fight about or fight for, we're fighting for each other. We're fighting for the love, the connectivity, the peace, the happiness, the rest takes the same skills. So to end, the community is making sure that on both ends of the spectrum, that you're using those wheels so that you're not moving full speed ahead with two wheels in the air.
There was a vigor. There's always a lot of passion in what you say, but there was a vigor in the very last comments that you made. And I asked you earlier on to define activism. And I've always understood activism to be a vigorous campaigning. And I use the word vigor intentionally because vigor looks different depending on who it is embodied within. It really does. So, a vigorous campaign to bring social and policy change is what I understand activism to be.
Mhm.
And my hope, I have a lot of hopes after every single conversation, especially after all these summer episodes. And my hope is that there is a student government association team that's listening to us speak and they're inspired at an HBCU or Black Student Association at a non-HBCU, and they are inspired to figure out ways to have continuous community, if you will, and to figure out ways to yield their collective power in small ways, in small ways. Because what I, the big takeaway that I got from what you just said, I've never been a fan of protests. Don't shoot me. I have organized a couple, I have been present at a few, but I've never been a big fan of protests. And the reason why I've never been a big fan of protests is what you just shared. Now we've protested. We've gone out on the streets. We've done all the things. And I understand the role of protesting. Let me be very clear. I understand the role. But after we've done all of those things, now what? What's the you compared all of this to a relay earlier on. What's the next leg? And oftentimes we don't have the next leg prepared. And we don't even move on to the next leg. So my hope is that there are enough really bright students of this current college generation who are listening to us and they're like, you know what? We're going to figure out a way to yield this community that we have. Chinedu Nwokeafor, if you see my notes, I'm looking at them. There's so much we have not covered.
I was gonna say like this might need to be like a part one, part two thing because this is a
This
very
might need to
heavy
be a
one.
part one, part two.
This
There's
is a lot.
so much that I
Yeah,
wanted to cover that we haven't covered, and I think it's unfair to truncate them. So
it is.
listen, we might have to come back and speak about activism again. There's, I'm just looking at my notes. If they don't know, can you just burn it all down? Is a question that I asked when you spoke.
Oh,
I didn't get to
absolutely.
ask it.
Oh, that's good.
10 tweets and move on is another item that I noted down. Are we more informed or are we just more performative? There's so much. But I'm also told that my time's up. So, Chinedu, end this episode and part one. There's going to be a part two.
Thank
And
God.
part one of the activism conversation for me in one short word or phrase.
Or phrase. Okay.
Or phrase. He's going to go with a phrase. We
I'm
already
gonna go
know
with a phrase.
this.
Yeah.
He's going to go with a phrase. But I'm still going to give you the option. One short word or phrase.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest threat to activism today is...
Capitalism.
So you gave me one word.
Oh, now she wants the phrase.
No. This is how if this were a movie, after me saying this is going to be the ... because there's
Dog.
got to be
Mm-hmm.
a part two. Because
Mm-hmm.
here's why there's got to be a part two. You talked about how important money is in the fight, if you will. I'm just going to say in the fight.
Mm-hmm.
And you've just said that the biggest threat to activism is capitalism. If I ask you to explain, we're going to be here for the next hour. So on that note, Chinedu Nwokeafor, there must be a part two, and that is where we're going to start.
But I do have to say something.
Go ahead.
To the point that you made earlier, I'm going backwards
Yes.
to the
Yes.
SGA. If there is anybody in any SGA at an HBCU or any black student at a school in your SGA or in your associations, uh, I'll just say this: I've done the work for many years because I was in school for a long time. I've done the work. Have a lot of experience, and this must continue. And if it is to continue, find me. I'll never charge you for any of the information I have because it is yours. I actually got it for you. And I only have one condition. I will never take a dime. I don't believe in taking dimes from students. The only condition is you have to pass it on. That's all.
It is impossible. I say this because I mean it. I just don't say it as words. It is impossible for anyone to have listened to us today and have watched this particular episode and not like this episode at least, i.e. give us an actual like on the episode, not because of me, but because of Chinedu Nwokeafor. And I hope I have earned the pleasure of you subscribing to I Love My HBCU because of conversations like this. Yours in HBCU love. See you next episode. Chinedu, thank you.
Thank you.
You've been listening to I Love My HBCU ? Let's keep the conversation going as we share our stories and encourage more practical support of HBCUs, whilst of course holding each other accountable. Don't forget to follow and subscribe for the latest episodes. Until next time, love and lift your HBCU.